are the biggest gaming leaks and news you've probably missed this week. I finished Metal Gear Solid Delta, Snake Eater in 2 days. And by finished, I mean I watched Radbrad's entire playthrough on YouTube. I don't even know if you can call this a game, because honestly, there's maybe 1 hour of actual gameplay and 5 hours of cutscenes. That's it. That's the whole thing. At that point, why even buy it? It's basically a Netflix short series packaged as a $60 or $70 game. And before someone asks, why didn't I just grab a review copy? I could have. It's literally a single click on a content creator site to claim it. But why bother? Watching it was enough. And if that's all it takes for me to decide I wouldn't even touch it if it was free on PS Plus or Game Pass, then something's seriously wrong. Look, I know there's a lot of nostalgia around Snake Eater, but let's touch grass and be honest here. The story and dialogue didn't age well at all. It's not just a little dated, it's flat out super cringe. Nothing makes sense in the way characters act. You get that classic villain trope. I'll tell you my evil plan before I kill you. Not once, but 3 or 4 times. And Snake just slips away because the big bad guy conveniently acts stupid over and over. It's laughable. And Kojima, man, I love you. Death Stranding is awesome. Death Stranding 2 looks like peak gaming. But even you must look back at Snake Eater and cringe a little at how silly some of this story comes across now. There were moments where I sat there thinking, who wrote this? A teenager trying too hard to be edgy? If Ubisoft released this exact same game in 2025, it would be torn apart, dragged through the mud, memed into oblivion, and laughed at like there's no tomorrow. But because it's Metal Gear, people try to protect it. So let's talk about Black Myth on Xbox, because this situation is kind of wild. Digital Foundry just dropped their breakdown. And yeah, the PlayStation 5 version is straight up better. No way around it. Here's the deal. On PS5, in performance mode, you're looking at around 1080p, running at about 45 frames per second, and most importantly, no tearing. The visuals stay consistent, lumen lighting is fully active, and it just feels smooth. Meanwhile, over on Xbox Series X, you get higher resolution, closer to 1440p, and the frame rate pushes toward 50, but it comes at a cost. Screen tearing all over the place, and the kicker, lumen lighting is disabled in performance mode. That makes the game look noticeably flatter and less atmospheric compared to PS5. And if you're on a Series S, forget it. Lumen is gone across the board, no matter which mode you pick. You basically get the dimmer, cut-down Xbox look with none of the PlayStation shine. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. The developers themselves, Game Science, came out and basically admitted it. Feng Ji, the game's director, said this in Chinese, and here's the translation. Although it wasn't too surprising, I still feel a bit emotional after securing everything. Everyone's combat power is terrifying. The only thing missing is the Xbox robe, which somehow feels a bit wrong. But that 10 gigabytes of shared memory, without years of optimization experience, it's really hard to make it work. That's huge. They're flat out saying, look, we don't have the experience optimizing for Xbox. And with the Series S's limited 10 gigs of shared memory, it's basically impossible to deliver the same experience. That's why the Xbox launch was delayed in the first place. It's not about exclusivity deals. It's not about PlayStation money hats. It's literally just the architecture being harder to work with, especially if you're a studio that hasn't spent years learning how to squeeze performance out of Xbox hardware. So here's the bottom line. Black Myth Wukong on PS5 looks better and plays better, while the Xbox versions, especially on Series S, are missing key visual features like lumen and suffering from tearing. And the devs themselves admitted they couldn't figure out how to make it work. This is one of those rare times where it's not just Digital Foundry nitpicking pixels. The actual creators are telling us straight up, yeah, we couldn't get it running the way we wanted on Xbox. So let's talk about Unreal Engine 5. Remember back in 2020 when Epic Games dropped that PS5 demo, Lumen in the Land of Nanite? That was the moment every gamer thought, yep, next gen is here. They showed off this ridiculous cave scene, statues with infinite detail, dynamic lighting bouncing off every surface, all supposed supposedly running in real time on a PlayStation 5. And the kicker? They said this was actual gameplay. Like, look, this is what you'll be playing in just a couple years. Fast forward 5 years. It's 2025. And let me ask you, where the hell are those games? Where's that future we were promised? Because not only do we not have them on PS5, not even on PS5 Pro, but we don't even have them on the most powerful gaming PCs with RTX 5090 strapped to liquid nitrogen. Nowhere. The closest we've gotten are UE5 titles that look half decent in screenshots, but stutter, crash, and run like absolute garbage the second you press start. And yet, Unreal Engine 5 always gets away with it. That's the part that blows my mind. Every single time a UE5 game launches broken, Immortals of Avium, Lords of the Fallen, even Fortnite updates sometimes, the story isn't that the engine might be a problem. No, it's always developers need to learn how to use it. Like somehow Epic gets to wash their hands clean and say, not it, you just suck. Tim Sweeney literally said the problem isn't Unreal Engine, it's devs who don't optimize. Oh really? So you're telling me the engine designed to handle all the hard stuff can't actually handle the hard stuff? Got it. Let's be real. That 2020 demo was smoke and mirrors. Yes, it ran on PS5 hardware, but it wasn't a game. It was a movie set disguised as gameplay. No AI, no combat systems, no open world streaming, no online servers, just a carefully staged walking tour of rocks and statues. It was designed to make you go, holy shot, not to be playable beyond what we saw. But of course, gamers, devs, and even Sony themselves ate it up. That demo basically became free marketing for the PS5, but it never comes. Every year, we get new UE5 tech demos. Just this year, CD Projekt Red showed off a Witcher 4 tech demo, running on base PS5 at 60 frames per second, huge crowds, gorgeous environments, looked absolutely insane. And what did gamers do? We lost our minds. We said, finally, this is what we've been waiting for. But here's the catch. Witcher 4 doesn't come out until 2027, maybe 2028, which means we'll spend the rest of this console generation waiting for a promise Epic made 5 years ago. UE5 always gets away with it because of one simple trick: distraction. Epic just keeps dropping new flashy demos. Nanite rocks, lumen lighting, metahumans. Every few months there's a new trailer showing some breathtaking scene, and we all forget about the broken launches. We go, yeah, the engine's fine, it's just the devs. And Epic laughs all the way to the bank because every major studio is still licensing Unreal. Okay, real talk. You either grew up with Gears of War back in 2006, or you completely missed it because you were on PlayStation. And if you're in that second camp, Reloaded on PS5 is basically your first real chance to jump in without borrowing your cousin's Xbox. So here's the deal. It's the same game, same campaign, same story, Marcus Fenix still yelling in that gruff voice. But now, it's all smoothed out. Campaign runs at a clean 60 frames, multiplayer goes up to 120, and with the DualSense triggers and haptics, the Lancer finally feels like the brutal weapon it's supposed to be. You even get every single DLC packed in, no nickel and diming. Now don't get me wrong, it's still a mid-2000s shooter at heart. That means brown levels, chunky animations, and no horde mode, which honestly stings because that's what most people remember as peak Gears. But you know what? The core still holds up, sliding into cover, popping locust heads with a shotgun, blind firing over a barricade. It's still fun in 2025. And the wild part? It's huge on PS5. Over 1 million players jumped in during launch week. The comments on Reddit are just pure nostalgia. People saying they feel like teenagers again. That's the vibe this game is bringing. So yeah, if you've never played it, this is hands down the best way to experience it. If you already did back on Xbox, well, it's basically the same ride, but in 4K with smoother controls. Not groundbreaking, not new, just a clean remaster that hits right where it should. So let me ask you this. Did Lost Soul Aside actually live up to 11 years of hype? Is the combat as smooth and stylish as it looked in those trailers? Why is the community split right down the middle, with some people calling it a hidden gem and others saying it's unplayable? And most importantly, should you spend $60 on this thing right now or just wait? In this segment, we're going to try to answer all of those questions. Now, first off, the reviews are mixed. On Steam, it's sitting at barely over 50% positive. That's not a great look. People are raving about the flashy combat, the Devil May Cry style combos, and some genuinely cool boss fights. But almost in the same breath, they'll tell you that it feels floaty, that hits don't have weight, and that without any difficulty options, it can be straight up brutal. You've got parries, dodges, all that good stuff. But one mistake and you're eating dirt. Then there's the technical side, and oh boy, that's where the ugly really kicks in. We're talking frame drops, performance hitches, invisible walls, weird animations, even music cutting in and out during cutscenes. Some players called the English dub laughable, so much so that people are switching to Chinese or Japanese voices just to get through it. If you've got a monster rig, sure, you might pull 200 plus frames with ray tracing off, but most players are running into stutters and jank, even on PS5. Now the story and world. This is where most people just shrug. Bland characters, generic dialogue, and a plot that feels like someone stitched together Final Fantasy leftovers. Some folks are actually finding it funny in a so bad it's good way, which, hey, that might be its own kind of charm. But here's the thing. Despite all of that, the game's starting to build this weird cult following. You've got people saying they love the combat system, calling it a mix of Devil May Cry and Final Fantasy 16. Others are comparing it to a mid-70s Metacritic game that ends up with a loyal fan base years later. And then there are the pessimists saying it feels like Sony threw it out to die with zero marketing. So what's the takeaway? Lost Soul aside is rough, no question. It's not the polished blockbuster some people expected after a decade in development. But if you're the kind of player who doesn't mind rough edges, if you can laugh at janky dubs, push through some performance dips, and just enjoy flashy combat, you might actually have fun here. It's not a disaster. It's not a masterpiece. It's a flawed gem that might just shine brighter after a few patches. Now the real question is, are you willing to roll the dice on it right now? Or do you wait and see if the devs can polish it up? That's up to you. Here's a review that caught my attention. I'm only 3 hours in, but I'm really torn on this game. On one hand, the visuals are top-notch and the combat is decent, a tier below Stellar Blade. These were the two things that had been consistently teased and promised, and Yang Bing and his studio finally delivered on those aspects. Everything else is kind of a mess. Audio. The mixing is terrible and the English voice acting is laughable. The Japanese VA is at least tolerable. Story and characters, bland and lifeless. Exposition is constantly shoved down your throat through monologues. The world looks beautiful, but the world building has been a big letdown so far. Movement. Outside of combat, movement feels floaty and awkward. The platforming puzzles aren't hard because they're clever, but because the controls feel so unpolished. Save system. Easily the worst design choice. You can only save at a designated NPC before bosses, but those saves are locked to that checkpoint. If you beat a boss, then save at that same NPC, closing and reloading the game makes you fight the boss again. To actually carry progress forward, you need to save at the next boss checkpoint. The game even knows you've already beaten the boss. Cutscenes are suddenly skippable, yet it still forces you to redo the fight. Absolutely bonkers. Performance. I will say I haven't had any of the performance issues that some of these reviewers are claiming and have had a semi-consistent 240 frames per second with cinematic settings plus RT 5090 or 7900X rig in the actual gameplay. There are micro stutters that break the immersion though, and I've had huge frame drops in the navigation menus. I hate doing anything in menus in this game because of how slow it is. If Steam had a neutral option, that's what I'd pick. The game delivered on visuals and combat, but everything else desperately needs polish. Hopefully, future patches can address some of this. So, how are Xbox players dealing with the new game? Well, let's just say Helldivers 2 is giving them a very harsh introduction. The game finally landed on Xbox this week, published under PlayStation's own label, which already feels surreal enough. And now, thousands of fresh recruits are diving in, only to find out firsthand just how cruel this galaxy can be. Clips are already going viral. New players sticking stratagems to teammates, calling in supply drops that end up flattening their own squad, or finishing a flawless mission just to get crushed crushed by the extraction shuttle. It's brutal, it's unforgiving, and honestly, it's Helldivers at its finest. But here's the twist. Instead of veterans flaming them or getting toxic, the community has stepped up in the most wholesome way. On the subreddit, stories are pouring in of players showing patience, cracking jokes, even hugging it out after mistakes. One player admitted they accidentally hit the wrong button on a teammate's backpack, and instead of rage, the guy just typed, "Hold me, brother," as they both went down in glorious liberation fire. That's the vibe. And the devs noticed. Arrowhead's CEO, Shams Georgiani, actually jumped into the official Discord to thank the community. He said he's read story after story of Xbox players sending out SOS beacons and being greeted by what he called Giga Chad veterans, dropping in with supplies, sweet loot, and good manners. He straight up told players, "You folks are the best." So yeah, Xbox recruits are learning the game the hard way, but at the same time, they're being welcomed with open arms by one of the most supportive player bases out there. And in a week where Gears of War showed up on PlayStation, and PlayStation published a non-MLB title on Xbox, this whole crossover energy just feels wild. Cats, dogs, Helldivers, Spartans, it's chaos, but the good kind. So Helldivers 2 is having this crazy second wind right now. Xbox finally got the game on August 26th, and at the same time, Arrowhead dropped that Halo-themed ODST Warbond. I mean, come on, that's perfect timing. Xbox players jump in on day one, and the first thing they see is armor that looks straight out of Halo. That's not a coincidence. That's strategy. And the numbers, they don't lie. Steam shot up past 160,000 concurrents again, the highest since spring. And across platforms, we're talking about 300,000 to 500,000 people all diving in at once. Servers were melting, but instead of killing the hype, it fueled it. Everyone was talking about it. Screenshots, memes, the works. That's the Helldivers magic. The chaos becomes part of the fun. But here's the really interesting part. It's not just players making noise. The devs are too. Arrowhead straight up said, don't expect Helldivers 3 anytime soon. Instead, they want to grow Helldivers 2 into Helldivers 3. Basically, make it so massive, so feature-rich, that it feels like a sequel without slapping a number on the box. And they can pull that off. Look at what's coming up. September 2nd, we're getting the Hive Worlds update, underground caverns where your stratagems don't even work. You're stuck with flashlights, close quarters chaos, and maybe, just maybe, the return of Hive Lords. Then 2 days later, boom, Dust Devil's Warbond drops with a spear gun. New incendiary weapons, fresh grenades, the works. That's not filler content, that's game-changing stuff. Now, sure, Arrowhead admitted they've got a tiny team cooking up something new, codenamed Game 6, but they've been clear, Helldivers 2 is still the main focus. They're not pulling resources away from it, they're doubling down. And when the studio head jokes about having a bajillion ideas a minute, but admits they can't do everything, you know they're picking their battles carefully. So where does that leave us? Right here. Helldivers 2 isn't winding down, it's leveling up. We're watching a live service game that's actually delivering on its promise. New enemies, new maps, new toys, without losing what made it fun in the first place. And the devs aren't chasing a quick Helldivers 3 cash grab, they're building this one into something that can stand for years. The only question is, how far can they take it? Do we really see this game evolve so much that a sequel feels unnecessary? Or do you think the hype eventually cools and that mysterious Game 6 ends up stealing the spotlight? If you enjoyed this video, hey, maybe drop a like. It really helps a lot and tells me you want more. Subscribe for day one gaming leaks and news, and check out these videos you probably missed. Trust me, they're worth it.